Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I am here today with Missy Shropshire. Missy started her career in sales, reaching the top 2% in a multi-billion-dollar company. She held that position for 15 years, during which she learned the importance of building a team, leading them well, and working toward a shared vision of success. Then a near-death experience caused her to reevaluate her life. Leaving the sales industry at the top of her game, she switched gears to become a certified life and business coach. Now she helps leaders do what she learned to do, align with a higher purpose, and achieve their true potential. Today, Missy is on a mission to help leaders embrace their circumstances and achieve their deepest held dreams and desires. Doesn't that sound good? Don't we all want to reach our deepest held dreams and desires? Today, we talked about how to get what you want and keep what you value, how to loosen your golden handcuffs and clarify your purpose, stepping into action, how to challenge the limited beliefs that keep you stuck, how to create a compelling vision that motivates you, how to move from memory to imagination and create the life you want, and 3 powerful action steps to ignite change, as well as recognizing you're worthy of having your greatest dreams and how your value will equate to the things you actually go after. And this was such a great episode for anyone wanting to step into their dreams, live out their purpose, have clarity on their vision today. So good. So without further ado, we're going to step into this episode with Missy. Oh, I know. I did want to say this one thing. I was just thinking, Missy, if you're listening, I was in Mary Kay when I was on the Air Force Base, and I literally, that's probably why to this day I don't step out of the house without my Mary Kay on. But I will just say that what I learned in Mary Kay, I remember being the only person, not at my gym, which I run today, but at somebody else's gym. There were no other workers that day, and I had like 6 or 7 people all come in wanting to tour the gym. So I just thought, wow, that's a lot. I don't want to miss these sales. I'm the person running the gym today. I set them all down in the office, not my office, but the owner's office, and I literally treated it like it was a Mary Kay party. And I went to each person, is there any reason why you wouldn't like to start today? You know, did all of the things. Look, you get below them, you look them in the left eye. I mean, all of these things that I learned through Mary Kay, and I sold all 7. So I think that you can channel any skill that you learn in your last career into your next career, into your next vision. It all is stepping stones to the next thing. So I hope you guys enjoyed that little story. And without further ado, we are diving into this episode with the one, the only Missy Shropshire. I am so excited to welcome my friend Missy Shropshire to the Sisterhood of Sweat today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, it's been a little bit since I saw you in New York City at the Speaker Salon, where we both took the stage, and it was quite an experience of transformation from beginning to end. You guys got to hear my speech. I put it on the podcast, but I just want to hear from Missy. What do you feel you how did you transform during the experience of going from idea to actual speech?
Oh my gosh, it was such a transformation. Trisha is a magician. There's no other way to say it. She was amazing. And I had just finished writing my book. And so it wasn't even published yet, but I had the manuscript finished. And she was so great. She read the book and she said, Missy, this is your topic. Just from all those pages, she was able to pull out the chapters on imagination. And it just resonated with me. She's such a great partner. And I think I'd be a lot further behind had she not just been willing to look at that and see objectively, where my message would really land.
I love
How about
that.
you, Linda? What would you say is yours?
Oh my gosh, it was like a healing journey for me.
Mhm.
And I didn't even talk about the fact that I survived domestic violence. It never came up because the real issue went all the way back to the root of childhood and the messages that I received during childhood. And so that was such a healing journey that it still seems to be the gift that keeps giving. And like just today in my studio, I was talking with a client and it was the same message. The same message came up. She had the same experiences that we were already worthy before we lifted one finger, before we tried to prove ourselves, before we ever achieved all these accolades. And so it's amazing what just deciding that you're going to do something and putting your trust in someone's hands like Trisha, or a great coach like you with your compelling clarity coaching, how that could transform your life and transform the lives of others.
Yeah, that's such a great take. I think as a coach, I've worked with a lot of successful people. And obviously, success, Linda, and you've been successful. And I have been too. I had a sales career where I was very successful before I even became a coach. And I think I realized, especially for women, that we got really good at proving ourselves because we felt like we had so much to prove. We were competing with men and we were doing everything at home. And so we are really good at proving that we belong in the room. And I'm realizing now at this age where I am now, I'm much more powerful when I step away from proving and I just step into my purpose, or really relax into my purpose. So I
I
think
love that.
I think a lot of women are waking up to that because we're actually more powerful when we're not trying to compete and prove, and when we just surrender to who we are and let our growth flow.
And that was so well put, because one of the reasons why I opened the Sisterhood of Sweat was I wanted a place where women could just let their hair down and not feel in competition, but more in collaboration with each other. And it really is a great environment for building that sisterhood of support that we all need. I mean, if you're out there like finding people that you resonate with, that you don't feel in competition with, because it's so easy to fall in the comparison trap and also feel like you have to be better than. It's always better to be more in that collaboration, don't you think?
Absolutely. That's another shift that I talk about in the book, is moving from competition to collaboration. And I had to learn that from my story, from my speech, that I was a sales director with Mary Kay forever. And I earned 7 pink Cadillacs. And people think I'm competitive, but I'm really not. If someone else wants something, I would much rather step back and let them have it, and become a collaborator. But I learned about the sisterhood. That was my school of sisterhood, was being in that pink company, surrounded by women who just loved on me and who supported each other. And it was really awesome to just see that. And probably for the first time in my life, to just really have powerful female partnerships where I wasn't competing.
So what do you think, like, you you have this backstory, which I really do want to go into for people, because I know there are a lot of people listening right now that maybe feel like they've come to the end of what they're doing, where they're just over it. Maybe like they want to know, what else is there for me? Couldn't there be something more for me?
Yeah.
I feel like there is. Uh, Help lead us to, how can they walk away, and how did you walk away? I
Yeah.
mean, you were so successful in Mary Kay, and for you, those of you listening, I have had several sales directors come, I also used to do Mary Kay.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
I never got a chance to tell you, but I'll tell you a story when we get going. But
Okay.
let me just say, I've had so many sales directors come through my business, and I just really admire the whole spirit behind the Mary Kay.
Mhm.
I just really admired Mary Kay Ash. I read the entire book, and
Yes. Her
so
book
let's
is
jump
amazing.
into this.
Yeah, well, and I found myself there. Like, I was not a girly girl and I didn't love makeup, but I was at a point in my life. I was 30 years old. I had two children. Our marriage was in crisis. We didn't have jobs. I mean, just everything had fallen apart. And I walked into this Mary Kay meeting thinking I would never do it in a million years. And someone, I just knew in that moment I was supposed to do it. And I got this little nudge of inspiration and I did it. And within a year, I was a sales director. And I think that I was obedient to that voice that was calling me to do that. And it seemed like everything I did flourished and everything I did prospered. And I knew I was lucky and I knew I was really blessed in that. But I was also very humble and very grateful. And so I think that, when like the universe blesses that, when you are humble and grateful, it continues to give you more responsibility, more abundance. And that's what I found. And even so, I always felt like a fish out of water. I always felt like that wasn't where I was supposed to land. And so two things happened, which from my story, is that our 4-year-old daughter was diagnosed with stage 3 kidney cancer. And if you've never been in that kind of situation, we'd never had an illness like that in our family. She was perfectly healthy one day and chronically ill the next. So it was a huge shock. It was devastating. It was all hands on deck from a family perspective. And my unit in Mary Kay and my sister sales directors just showed up for me. And that was amazing. And I felt so loved, but I also felt so guilty because I was already thinking, I'm not sure this is where I want to stay, for my career. And then a year later, I gave birth to our youngest child and ended up with severe complications that left me in a coma. Really, they did not think I would live through the night at one point. I had sepsis, congestive heart failure, 14 other different diagnoses. And the doctors said to my husband, there's probably a 30% chance that she's going to live. And when I woke up, I felt like I had escaped death and that I wasn't afraid of it. I wasn't afraid of dying, but I do felt like I'd been given a second chance, and that God said to me, it doesn't really matter too much if you die now or later, but if you're going to stay here, make it matter. Do something meaningful. And I know he was calling me to leave my comfort zone. Not that there was anything wrong with that company or the people that I worked with. It just wasn't where I was supposed to stay. And so I began to try to discover my purpose, which is really hard to do by yourself. And I took some assessments, I went to some seminars, and I got a lot of useful information, but it didn't seem actionable. And I didn't know how to leave my golden handcuffs without letting a bunch of people down, disappointing my people and my family. So I hired a life coach. And
Oh, okay.
yeah, she was amazing. And I still talk with her today. We talk almost every month. And just having someone who is trained to get to the heart of it with you and to help you see what things you're not willing to look at and your insecurities, and also to help you strategize and create to overcome your limiting beliefs, and then to create strategies for the obstacles that you're facing. So for the last 15 years, I've been doing that for people, and it's been amazing.
Well, how do you loosen? Because I understand what you mean by golden handcuffs. It's like probably most people's dreams come true, but
Mm.
it's so golden that even though it isn't doing it for you anymore, you don't want to leave and have to reinvent the wheel or do something else. Like you're afraid it kind of ties you to being there. So
Yeah.
how does somebody loosen their golden handcuffs and clarify their purpose and step into action like you did?
Yeah. I think you get to the point where you're trying to create this happiness and it's all focused on external things. And you have to begin to focus on the internal and what it's going to take for you to truly be happy and fulfilled. And I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I don't know who's going to pay me this much money to do what I really want to do, but I'm ready to find out. I was ready to walk away from the income. And I'd put a plan in place, to kind of help my family through that adjustment. But the truth is, once I started down this path, I've never had to take a pay cut. My income has increased every year. And that's the message I want to share with people is we always think that we're going to have to trade something. Like life just can't be that good, right? If we want to do what we really want, we have to make some sacrifice somewhere else. And I found the opposite was to be true. When I really started stepping into my purpose and taking those steps in faith, the income came, the abundance began to flow into my life. So
I love that. And I mean, I do find that to be like so true. I remember just being so like afraid. I mean, pretty much everything I've done. I've done some big things, but like every single thing, you go through this whole process of, and I think it still boils down to what we started this conversation with, which is what is your value? Because
mhm.
you bring your value to everything that you do. So if you're a great Mary Kay director, you're going to be a great
Yeah,
whatever. And
yeah,
it's having the faith that your value and that your worthiness is enough. Like knowing that uh, I think people's monetary worth a lot of times equates to where their
mhm,
self-value is, because if you don't have that belief in what you're offering, you won't charge enough. And
mhm.
there's so many things that I think it just kind of goes hand in hand. So you said you had a lot of limiting beliefs. And
Mhm.
I will say that's kind of what started me on this journey that I have been on, was going to this workshop with Isaiah Hankel, who wrote this book, like Live Like a Lion.
Ooh.
And he I got to go to this workshop just because I emailed him. And then one day he responded and I was like, wait, I think that's a real response, not a generic salesy email. And I got to go to his workshop. And he's literally saying, what are your limiting beliefs? We're sitting in a room full of people, and I, Miss Positive, think I have no limiting beliefs. Oh my gosh. Like I had limiting beliefs. Oh, yes. And so did everyone else. And they were so much the same. Like yours, you think, oh, nobody has that limit, but like everybody had a lot of the same things. And the most freeing thing that happened was kind of embarrassing, because I am like literally wrote this list out of what my dreams around the clock for the perfect day were. And one of them was skinny dipping at midnight with my husband. And
All right.
I had swimming with the dolphins. I had all this stuff on the list, but I didn't expect to have to stand up in front of people and
Say it. Yeah.
read my list. And so he
That's so
said,
great.
he said to me, and I'll never forget it, because I said, this is my alter ego speaking. And then he said, can you guys, he asked everyone in the room, see her doing the things on this list? He said, I can see her doing the things on
Mm,
this list. And then he turned to
mhm.
me and he looked me straight in the eyes And he said, you deserve to do the things on this list.
I
And do
love
you
that.
know, in a month's time, I manifested 4 of those things.
Yeah. Yep.
And that scared me almost, actually.
It was so good, Linda. You know what? I share this in the book too. It's that those desires lead to your destination. And we tend to do the stuff we're supposed to do, the work first, and think if there's any time left over, I'll think about my dreams and I'll do those things. But even those little desires that you mentioned, like the skinny dipping, the swimming with the dolphins, I am learning to honor my desires on a daily basis. So one of mine, and this will be nothing compared to what you are capable of doing, but one of my goals when I turned 40 was I wanted to be able to do a handstand. And I've never been like super athletic or fit or anything like that, but I can do one today. And it's that little thing. It makes me feel so powerful, and it changes how I show up. And what does that have to do with anything? I don't know, except that it changes how I show up. I can do a handstand, you know?
Builds confidence, it builds belief. And that was
Yeah.
the one thing when he said, you deserve to do the things on this list, and seeing yourself doing the things on the list. Like, it was a belief builder,
Yeah.
right? And
Yes.
so I think when you do hard things that you want to do, it builds your belief that you can do other hard things that you want to
Mhm.
do.
Yeah.
And then you think, oh, I was just dreaming way too small. Now, back to the
Yeah.
limiting beliefs. What kind of limiting beliefs did you have, and how did you overcome them?
Well, I had a lot. I could share one really recent one because even when you shared that story, I thought, what I'm always asking myself, what am I learning? What am I learning? And because I think if our purpose is to grow, we can't fail. You know, if your purpose is to grow, you can't fail. And even in this book launch, I have been shocked at how well the book is doing, but the people around me are not. And I realize there are people around me that believe more in me than I believe in myself. And that has been like, oh gosh, what limiting belief did I have for myself there? But when I was in my golden handcuffs, the beliefs around that for myself and generally for people are, I'm going to have to take a pay cut. If I get to do what I really want to do, it'll involve some kind of a pay cut. I don't know why we all think that. I don't know why we all think that, but that seems to be a common one. And then another one is I should be grateful. That was a big one for me because there were a lot of people that worked really hard to try to achieve the same level of success I had achieved in that company. And a lot of people would have traded places with me. So there was times when I would sit in the room and feel like I can't leave. There's a lot of people that would really want to be in my position.
You
And
felt guilty.
I felt guilty. Yeah. And but then there's also this comfort thing too, where once you get into something and you're good at it, it can almost define you. And I was in danger of that. Like my identity was in that. I drove pink cars. I was known as the Mary Kay lady to everyone in town. And it's hard to separate from something that has become your identity too.
So I can relate so much to what you have said about your story and getting tied to an identity of what you've always done. And sometimes I think God kicks us out of the nest. He has more for us to do, and he wants us to spread our wings and fly and recognize what we're capable and worthy of, and that we could soar to the highest heights. And if he has a big purpose for you, you can't do it staying stuck in the old things you used to do. And so it takes courage and faith. But one of the most recent messages I felt like I've been getting from him was, because you're always afraid for that next level, because like new levels, new devils, and sometimes you
Yeah.
get pushback. You get
Oh
pushback
yeah.
when you're going to that next level. And if you're like me, I like to make everyone happy. And that doesn't happen
Yeah.
when you are making change and real growth. Not everyone is going to be at that table. And the biggest message was that he doesn't put the lid on the jar that we're in.
Mhm.
He wants us to take the lid off,
Yeah.
because we aren't limited. We are limitless, and we don't need what we think we need. Like, we think we need all of these things. We don't need what we think we need, and we have to have the courage and faith to step out of that jar, to get out of
Yeah.
that tin of comfort and fear.
And don't you think too that like when life gets good, like so you and I both had challenges in our childhood, right? And I think because of that, you get to a point where life feels stable and it feels comfortable and it feels good. It's like, well, I'm not used to this feeling. It feels pretty good. And I think there's an opportunity for us to get stuck there. But what we're really called to do is continue to grow. And I said this to Angela Ganot the other day, that our as we age, our purpose expands. And that doesn't mean we have to do more and more things, but it does mean that we settle into the knowledge of who we are and how we are uniquely gifted and called, and the way we see things and the way we view the world. And we begin to be intuitive and show up in the rooms where we need to show up. And I think I almost stayed comfortable. I almost just decided to stay there. And I look back now over the last 15 years of what I would have missed. Like Linda, our friendship, all the people that were in the room at the speaker salon, I never would have met them. These amazing human beings that are helping me expand and grow my purpose and become more and be more fulfilled. And that comfort is kind of a lie, where you just stay here. It's like in my book I call them the dreamer and the dragon. The dragon is like, just stay here in the hollow mountain. You've finally come to a place where you can be comfortable and kick back. But the visionary in us calls us to continue to grow and to continue to step into our purpose and to continue to allow it to expand so we can have an impact in the world. So
And I think, just like me, you have a bigger purpose. Like, it isn't just about you. And I keep feeling that, some of the things that have been happening recently, which are really big, um, they're also kind of scary. But, and, I felt that God was telling me he had big plans for me. And so I've been leaning in, even though I'm like, really, this is part of those, like,
I love it.
plans. And so when you have a mission and a vision and a purpose that's greater than yourself,
Yeah.
a lot is going to be required of you. And I
Yeah.
think we go through a lot of lessons along the way. And again, pushback is part of that. And that is the hardest part, when maybe not everyone is pleased
Yeah.
when you are growing, or they
'Cause
don't understand it,
it,
or they
it
feel left behind.
Yeah, that's exactly it right there. There's a story in my book where I talk about I was coaching this gal and she was amazing and she just transformed her life. Like I find people come to me when they're ready to change. And so my work is so easy. I just create space and kind of give them this framework to go on, but they are ready. And it's kind of like when the student is ready, the teacher appears, and I don't see myself as a teacher but more of a guide, like to help guide them. But she came to my office one day and we are a couple months into the process and she had lost weight, and we had never talked about that as a goal, but I just said, you look amazing. And I mean, clearly she had lost weight and she's like, I feel so good. After we started talking, I changed my diet. I've been exercising. And when people just have that healthy glow, it just like, she just was glowing. And then she said, a few minutes later, her face clouded over and she said, I had dinner with my friends last night and they kind of confronted me and they think I'm taking this coaching thing a little too seriously, or they think it's a little too much, or they're seeing too much change too quickly. And I was like, you need to get some new friends. And I said that graciously because with compassion towards her old friends, so much compassion because they're dear to her and they probably always will be. But not everybody is ready to go with you on this journey. And when you begin to change, it challenges their limiting beliefs because now they see what's possible and there's no real argument left for them not to change. So I think that is a big issue, but you know what? We still lead the way, and you have to find new partnerships and new strong partnerships of people who are on the same journey and who will support your old friends with compassion, but will help you and support you in your calling.
So it is a reality and it is very surprising. It will come from surprising sources, the pushback. And when you are changing, all of a sudden, the people that have those limiting beliefs that maybe actually wish they were doing the same thing, but they're not doing any goals or anything, they will find reasons that there's something's wrong with you.
Right.
You know, all of a sudden you're this horrible person, or uh they'll find fault in all sorts of little things that they never did before. And that's part of it. You have to be
Yeah.
prepared for it if you're going to do big things in life, that it isn't always going to be somebody, for the most part, people are in your corner, but not everyone
Oh, yeah.
will
And
be
it's
in your corner.
I see that too. It's like not everybody, not every friend is a safe friend. And you see it with your success too. It's like when you're successful, there are people that have the bigness of heart to truly celebrate with you and cheer you on and be excited. And then you also get feelings from other people too, where they're like, you know, maybe they're just waiting to see you it not work out or not be as great. But I think just trying to understand where everybody's at and view it with compassion. But our job
True,
is to
true.
follow our dream. And I say this all the time. It's like the reason they don't understand is because God didn't give them your dream. He gave it to you. And I think that's part of our growth, Linda, is to respond with love and compassion, to,
Yes,
to
definitely
set
that.
to set
Because,
boundaries when we need to, and
yeah,
to carry on. Yeah.
because we've all been there. You've all been there where you see somebody's accolade and maybe you're not there yet, but if you want to, the good news is if they achieved it,
You can do
so
it.
so can you. And the second great thing is if you celebrate that, you're more likely to achieve it yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is one thing they taught us in Mary Kay that I loved is because we were a group of all women. You know, how catty could that be? And it could have been a really negative environment. And I remember hearing this phrase all the time. We used to say, "If she can do it, I can do it." And that's what Mary Kay wanted. She wanted the leaders to inspire other people to pave a pathway that instead of looking at someone and saying, "Well, she got lucky." I heard that a lot. She got lucky, but to realize she's got something to teach me. Someone who's done that
That's
before
it
has
right
something to
there.
teach me. Yeah.
That's it. So recognize that that person, if they did it, so can you. Celebrate it. And then it is kind of an indicator on maybe something you really want to do. So ask the person, how did you do that? How did you get there? Because then you can be the next one doing
Mhm.
that amazing, cool thing. Maybe you don't want to jump out of a plane. I know I don't. But
Me either. I'll let someone else have that one.
but maybe like my guest I had recently, Jen Drummond, who climbed all these summits, 7 of them,
Oh,
maybe it'll be something like that. Maybe it'll be something like being a Mary Kay director. But just realize that it usually points to something we need to work on in ourselves when we
yeah.
aren't celebrating other people's success.
Well, and whenever we're comparing, it's always a huge waste of time, right? Anytime you're comparing and it takes your energy, but it also allows you to take the focus off of yourself. And the only person we can change is ourselves.
Yeah.
So I try to catch myself right away if I'm comparing and celebrate success, because that you're right, it does expand you. And when you celebrate someone else's success, you're more likely to enjoy that success too.
And if we're feeling jealousy, which can be, a normal human emotion,
Hmm.
um, I would just say it's because we're not setting goals and working on ourselves.
Yeah.
It's usually that reason. So
Yeah.
the best way to squelch that is immediately decide what it is that you want if you're comparing or feeling envious or jealous, and start working towards those things. And I tell you, that's the biggest cure for having the green monster, I think.
It is. Totally is.
Now, how do we create, since I'm talking about people setting these goals, how do we create a vision that is compelling, that motivates us to action?
Yeah. This is one of my favorite things to talk about is the compelling vision, because we're learning more and more about neuroscience, about the way the brain works. And what we know is that we all have a vision in our head of the way we think things are going to turn out. And our non-conscious brain is working day and night to bring that vision into a reality. So the first step is awareness. It's like if you don't intentionally put that vision into your brain, it's going to just eat whatever junk food is in there, you know? So it's your brain only has two resources to get that your compelling vision from, and it will get it from your memory. And that's everything you know to be true about the past, which you'll recreate and get into a rut, or you can get it from your imagination. And sadly, we have not been taught to use our imagination in the same way we've been taught to rely on our memories and what we've learned in the past. So Albert Einstein was a champion of the adult imagination. And I do this, you know, the simplest advice I could give you is it really is the questions that we ask ourselves, because your mind is going to go down whatever path you tell it to based on the questions that you ask it. So like when my kids were teenagers, I'm like, what horrible thing can happen to them? And my brain would take me down that path. And I could imagine all the horrible things that could happen. But learning to ask yourself questions in every challenge, I try to ask, what would be the highest and best outcome in this situation? And journal it. Begin to elevate your vision by asking that one simple question. What would be the highest and best outcome? And then the exercise that you did, Linda, remember when you said you weren't really aware of any limiting beliefs until you started to explore your vision and your dream and things that really your desires. So I think another reason it's challenging to have a compelling vision is because we're told to squelch our desires instead of nurturing them and allowing them to come to life. We're always trying to push them away. And so that's the second step would be, you know, first step, ask the question, what would be the highest and best outcome? That'll get you start to think. But the second step is, what are those simple desires that I have that don't even seem logical, or I can't even explain why I have them? I want to do a handstand, you know, I
Lean
want to
into
go
those,
skinny
right?
dipping. Yeah, lean into them, because we have to kickstart our imagination. It's rusty and we have to give it some exercises to do. And there's lots of coaches that work on this I've got exercises in my book and in my guidebook that we'll talk about, but there are definitely ways to do it. So it's a process.
So when you're working from your memory to your imagination, your brain doesn't know the difference. And this is one of the things, like when you say, you write down what you want to do, you see it. When you say what you want to do, you hear it. And
Mhm.
when you visualize what you want to do, you see it. So
Yep.
I think like all of those components are why you achieve it, because your brain doesn't know the difference between you claiming that summit in your mind or actually doing it.
Yep. It's
And
true.
so that visualization, and I also think you got to say what you want. You got
Yeah.
to ask for what you want and speak it out, because don't say what you don't want, because like,
Absolutely. Because the brain
right?
doesn't know the difference and it just latches onto that. So
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
They say that in visualization, it's important to visualize two different things. You visualize the outcome, you know, like the Olympic athlete that visualizes themselves up on top of the podium with the national anthem playing and the gold medal. You visualize that, but you also visualize the process. Like, what am I doing to become that person who has achieved that goal? And that's another concept in my book too. It's under a chapter called A Mile a Day, and it's the story of Kathrine Switzer, who became the first woman to run the Boston Marathon. And there were tons of limiting beliefs, not just from her own self, but as a community. People didn't believe that women could run long distances back in 1967. not that long ago. People did not believe that women could run long distances. And she busted through that myth by running a mile a day as an 8th grader when she was a little girl. And that was the beginning of her confidence to step into that great calling. And that's why I trust people's desires. Like, even if they don't make sense or they don't seem logical, I go there with them because they always attach to some greater purpose or some really significant thing that happens in their lives or in their world because they honor those desires.
And, some of the desires I've had, I'm sure they make no sense to the average person, but they were in my heart for a reason. And
Yes.
I know when I ripped all of my muscles, just to make it a short story, from the pelvis with bone fragments, I, I thought, I'm never going to meet anyone cool again. Now
Oh,
I'll never be able to live my life as a champion. That was my limited, like, my thinking, but I surrendered to the moment of what was going on. And I knew within myself, in my heart, that I knew that I was a champion. I don't know how to explain this,
yeah.
but I believed, without having all of the, I'm not the gymnastic person, I'm not the dancer, I'm not the cheerleader, I'm the person at 40 that decided to start competing in fitness
Yeah.
routine.
So
And
Linda, you've just carved out such a unique, it's so you and it's so special and it's so unique. And it has opened up doors. Like, the people who need your message are drawn to you because you've honored these desires and you have become that champion. So I just love that. Like, you are becoming exactly who you were meant to be. And the people who need your message are finding you.
yeah, yes, and I just want to say, there's a champion in each and every one of us, and that the biggest thing that made me become Fitness Universe champion after the speech, and after all of these injuries that I thought I could never recover from. In fact, my therapist told me, hang it up.
Wow.
Um, my physical therapist. I want to just say that it's that belief that you are that person. And if you believe you are that person,
Hmm.
you can be that. You will become that. You
Yeah.
will. You
Yeah.
will see your day where you're the champion of women, the champion of coaching, whatever it is that you
Yeah.
pour your heart into.
And I think that belief is the first step, because I remember after my coma, I had had congestive heart failure. I could hardly walk up a flight of stairs. And the doctors, I was going to these heart appointments to have my heart, to do these checkups. And I was in a room with 70, 80-year-old women and me. And I was taking all these medicines to keep my heart pumping. And they told me I would be on those medicines for the rest of my life. And there was an internal voice inside of me that said, that's not true. And
Okay. Yeah.
I was careful about it, but I got off all that medicine within a year, and I began exercising and I began, but I'm so glad I listened to that voice. And even what you're describing, it's like we go through this dark night of the soul and you have that belief, that voice whispers to you. You still don't have the whole staircase mapped out in front of you. You still don't have certainty that it's going to be rebuilt and it's going to be rebuilt better, but you just have this faith to keep going. Like, I think that that's it too. It's like, I'm willing to work hard, but even before I work hard, I'm going to settle into this faith that this is for a purpose. I'm going to come back and grow and learn from this, and great things are going to happen.
And, like you said about the internal voice, I just couldn't I couldn't hang it up. I couldn't say I was never going to do it again. And I remember dreaming. I kept dreaming and seeing
Mm,
myself on the stage competing and doing fitness routines. And then just one day, and it was only 3 months out from winning, I thought to myself, I think I could do a fitness routine again. And then I had to overcome the fear. I
right.
checked it out with the doctor to make sure it was going to be okay.
It,
And you
I think
know,
that's a special challenge too, because we live in an age of experts and an expert medical opinions and expert this and expert that. And that's agency. It's realizing, okay, I'm going to listen to the experts. I'm going to hear what they have to say. But at the end of the day, my internal voice is more important. And I'm going
yeah,
to step forward with courage.
right.
So I love
And
that
that's
about
what
your story.
that's 100% because he wanted me to go see, he just tested me out in the office. He didn't want to give me an MRI to see that everything was good. And he made me go to this strength coach. And I was there 2 hours early. I got the, I showed up 2 hours early. I didn't realize. And then this guy is standing there. He's not doing a thing. And he says, "Oh, it's not, it's for another hour." And I'm like, "What?"
Ah.
And so then I'm like, "Oh, forget it. You know, you're not doing anything and you can't take me right now." So I just made up my mind. I went home then and there, and I threw my, feet, I did my feet over my head. Then I went into my round up. Then I went in the next thing. And then I realized that I was healed and that I could do these things. And so there again, it was trusting that inner that inner voice over everything
Mm.
else. And I think that when you do that, you're called into your greater purpose
Yeah.
and achievements.
Well, and I think too that God gets bored with us when we're only doing what we can do in our own strength and our own power. He's like, that's boring. He wants us to partner with him to achieve things that we could only do with his support and with his power.
Oh, I mean, okay, so 100%, like the biggest change for me, it changed my whole life having that stuff happen to me because it made me realize that I'm a lot more than my body and there's a
Yeah.
lot more for me to do and a lot more to me. And I started putting God first in every area of my life.
Mm.
And that's when all of my biggest dreams came true. And
Yeah.
so I think like having the alignment and your heart and your mind and your body all in the same
Yeah.
place is pretty darn
Yeah.
powerful.
So Linda, that's the theme of the book is alignment. It's funny that you would say
Oh, yay!
that. I went through all this strategy work with my publisher before we started writing, and she kept asking me, she's really good about that, digging through what it is. And I think that that's my life's work. And that's what I'm called to do as a coach is help people who are suffering from misalignment, where they feel that things they're good, but you're not quite in your zone. You're not quite doing what fills you up and what could the impact that you think you could have on the world. So that's the theme of the book, what we decided to solve for was misalignment.
Now, I really love that you're saying that because I think we could be playing so small doing something because it really isn't in alignment with our heart,
Mm-hmm.
our desires. Our desires lead us to our purpose, like you said earlier,
Yep.
and just what we were meant to really like, there's a difference between doing something and doing something you were meant and born for.
Absolutely. 100% difference. The energy is entirely different. That's like even coming to Trisha's, the minute I heard about that and the minute I talked with her, I just knew I wanted to do it. And I've learned to trust those desires. It was a big commitment. I flew in as you did every week. Was it 6 weeks we flew to New York
I'm
City?
still hearing about it from my husband.
you know,
Like,
I mean, I think that and I wasn't obsessed with the results. I mean, I had a great talk. I think I learned a lot. It was definitely part of my growth and development, but I've learned to trust my desires. Like I'm involved in some Broadway shows right now. What does that have to do with anything? It was a desire that I had and an opportunity that presented itself. And that little voice inside me said, yes, do it. And so those things are all incubating right now. And I'm so excited that while I'm out promoting my book, these Broadway shows that I'm invested in are also incubating. And I can't wait till this all pops out into the world at the same time. And
see,
big part of
now listening to you and anybody hearing this, they hear the life in your voice. They hear joy, they hear excitement, they hear passion, they hear purpose. And that's what we're here for. Like you said, you, I almost had my life snuffed out once, and it really made me live differently
Mm.
because I also felt like I escaped death. And for the longest time, I thought it was going to reach back out and get me.
Yeah.
But like, I'm just saying that you really live differently when you really get the fact that we're not here forever, like that we
Yeah.
could, it really does change the game. And I just think when you fully pour yourself into something and you make the choice to go for it, it changes everybody else's lives around you too.
It absolutely does. It gives other people permission. It's that whole anytime any one of us chooses faith over fear, it's it changes the energy in the room, and it helps other people step into theirs, or gives them the encouragement that they need in that moment in time to take their next step.
What do you think are three powerful steps that people could do today to ignite change? What are three action steps somebody out there listening today that wants to kind of grab a hold of what we're saying could start doing?
Well, at the risk of just self-promotion, order the book. Most people are telling me that they read it in 1 or 2 sittings, or within a matter of days, they start reading it and they can't stop. Because if you're in this spot where you are misaligned, I wrote this book because I've seen so many people have transformations in my office over the last 15 years. And so I wrote a book that so more people could feel like they were just sitting in that space and they had a coach walking alongside with them. So if it feels overwhelming to hire a coach, start with the book, download the guidebook, and do it with a friend, a trusted friend, someone who also wants to grow. Because it's just more fun if you do it, if you go with someone. And so those would be 2 steps. I would say get the book, definitely get the free guidebook because it's free. And there's a lot of coaching wisdom in that guidebook to help you start thinking through and sorting through things. And my third piece of advice is also a chapter in my book. Is the chapter is called Spill the Wind. And as part of my writing journey, I went out to Camden, Maine, and I got on a schooner, a 100-foot schooner. This, again, it was a desire that I had. This phrase captured my imagination. I'm like, I gotta go find out what this is about. And it's about when our lives get so busy that we just keep doing more and more and more, but we don't necessarily feel more fulfilled. It's like being on this schooner that it has to harness the wind to go. So it doesn't have a motor or anything like that. So if you can't figure out how to get those sails up and catch the wind, you're not going anywhere. But once you do and those sails rise up, it's magnificent. And that boat, when it catches the wind, it shoots through the water like an arrow through the forest. But if you don't let some of the wind out every now and then, the boat starts to tilt because the wind is blowing at a hard angle. And then the dishes are falling off the table and the kids are falling overboard because it's going too fast. So my third piece of advice is if you're ready to go on this journey, you have to cut some things out of your life and you have to create some space. And that's hard to do by yourself too, because it feels scary if you've ever done it. If you're a go-getter and you're an overachiever and all of a sudden you start having time to sit around and think, you don't know what to do with it, it's scary. But those would be the 3 things I think that I would
You
recommend.
have to leave space for miracles, to come in.
Yes.
And like when this happened with Trisha, it also was a time that my son got honored in France at
I
Cannes Film
remember that.
Festival,
Amazing.
and so like everything that I wanted to be going on in my life like was going on all at one time. And the first thing I kept saying with the women's thing was, oh my gosh, how can I possibly, like first I was thinking I couldn't do it. Then I was like, how can I do this? How can I do this? And I was like, I have to leave my business. Oh my gosh, like every week, and fly to New York and back. And then I went from saying, I can never do this to how can I do this? And
Yeah.
believing and leaping and seizing the opportunity. And then France came. And then I can't remember right now off the top of my head what the third thing, I guess I
But
was
yeah,
the
you were a
championship I was
busy girl.
competing. I
You're
was
busy.
competing in that championship. So all of those things
And
happened all at once. And what it showed me was that you can do so much more than you think you can. And sometimes you need to let go of things. Like I had to let go of the need that I had to be the person teaching every class and training and being in that,
yes.
and lets other people step up to the table. And now it's enabled me to reach so many more dreams that I'll be talking
Yeah.
about.
And the key, Linda, is that you asked the right question. You said, how can I? And that's a powerful question. Like that's the subtitle of my book, How to Get What You Want and Keep What You Value. It's like my friend Gina says, take a stand for the and then be in the present moment and enjoy it. And you did exactly that. And all those things worked out beautifully and you were able to enjoy them all.
And I love the whole how to get what you want and keep what you value, because I think, like what we said earlier, asking yourself the right questions, because if you ask your brain a negative question, it can only focus on answering it in a negative way.
Yeah.
But when you
It-
ask yourself one, like I asked myself an expansive question,
yes.
how can I do this? And then when France, after it was first with the women's thing, and then I was like, oh my gosh, how can I go to France, run my business like for a week, run my business, go to New York every week and compete?
Memorize a speech. Yeah,
How?
memorize a speech. I know. And you did beautifully. So it's great. I love that.
But the
So good.
how is like, it's asking yourself that expansive question so that your brain can come up with solutions, because
Yes.
otherwise you pigeonhole yourself into this
Yep.
limited, narrow thinking. And so am telling everyone, go out and get this book, Forces at Work. Sign up for the free guide with Missy so that you can get this coaching that is bringing so many people clarity and step into your own vision today.
Yeah. Thank you, Linda. Thank you so much. And it's all, I have the free guidebook up on my website. So just missyshopshire.com. And the book is on Amazon and all the other, places where you buy books.
And
So
make sure to let us know what resonated today with you, what action steps you are going to take, and review the podcast so we know that we're going to receive more listeners from that review.
thank you, Linda. It's so good to see you. I love seeing your smiling, energetic face, your beautiful soul. And I know you're going to continue to do great things. I can't wait to see what's next.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I am so excited for you. I have so enjoyed spending this hour with you today. You're such a sincere uh, person that, when you talk, I know I'm hearing the truth. And I think that that is what changes people's lives, when they know that they're actually hearing the truth. It's like an arrow. Like when you speak truth, you are piercing through the heart of the matter, I think. So I know a lot of people are going to get changed from what you said today and from your coaching as well as your book.
Thank you, Linda. That means a lot to me coming from you. And they say that we see in others what is true in ourselves. So I think those things are also true of you. And I'm
Uh,
glad we found I'm glad our souls found each other in New York City.
yeah,
and
I
we're
know,
able
right?
to.
So
Thank you so
great.
much.
Thank you guys. I love all of you out there. Thank you so much for listening. Let's give this one a share so that other people can find their vision and purpose. And as always, everyone, keep on keeping on. Bye, everybody.